Welcome in, everyone, to another edition of Inside the GIAA. It's Thrift, Barringer, Brett Taylor, your hosts, here for all things around the association. And we got a jam-packed show. And we got Brett Taylor, who's smiling ear to ear because his Bravos are winning, and we're almost in championship form here in just a little bit. Brett, how you been, man?
I've been good, man. How are you?
I'm doing great. Another day, another dollar. And we are presented by the Beck Center. Thank you to Roger Beck and the Beck Center for being the presenting sponsor for all things on the GIAA. Guess what? Baseball state championships are starting at the end of May. Baseball and soccer, and you're going to catch all of it on GIAA.tv. We'll be right at that field behind us.
You see my back. Well, this was from a couple of years ago at Luther Williams in Macon, but we'll be at another location. I'll show you that here shortly. Right there in Statesboro. There's J.I. Clement Stadium, so we'll be there in a few weeks. It won't be long, Thrift.
No, it will not, man. I cannot wait to be in attendance, Brett, for that. And, again, you can watch it on GIAA.tv. Don't forget the vault. We can watch all the previous state championship games for $5.99. That is $5.99 a month. Easy subscription. Gives you access to all the archives within the GIAA and that we have done on GIAA.tv. All right, what's on the docket today? Well, a couple things. First things first, we got tennis team state championships going on. They've been going on all day today. We won't have winners announced on this show. We will do that for next week. Also, we'll announce next week track and field state championships. We do have golf, and we'll do that here after this first intro. We also have our baseball segment. We have rankings from 1A, 2A, 3A, and 4A. Then we have on Coach Blake Corm, who is the head coach of Citizens Christian, and Coach Corm has done a great job. They're ranked number 1 in 1A, and they got a kid in Blake Bryant who is probably the number 1 pitcher in all the GIAA, getting looked at by 20 different scouts 2 days ago at Calvary when he pitched. It was a fantastic outing for him and a great baseball game between both Calvary and Citizens Christian. So we talked to him about how the season's going. Then Richard and Coach Ian Jones from Stratford. They break down everything that's happened in the soccer world, 2A, 3A, and 4A girls and boys rankings, because playoffs start next week. They wrap up this week, start next week. Playoffs are underway. Then we have the man, the myth, the legend. When you think GIAA and you think last name Morgan, they coincide together. Clint Morgan, commissioner, comes on, talks about the state championships that he's had so far during spring and then what we are looking forward to coming up. Brett, so a lot of fun this week alone. Golf state championships, tennis team state championships that's held at Stratford. And then guess what? This weekend, track and field state championships at Strong Rock. Busy week for Kent, Clint, and the rest of the guys, man.
Yeah, jam-packed. Obviously, Clint has been up at golf as well, and then we'll travel up from the Macon area up to Locust Grove to Strong Rock, and that'll be an exciting, what a great venue there in Locust Grove at Strong Rock Christian. Should be an outstanding time for track and field, and then we'll end some of those sports, and then we'll start eyeing soccer and then baseball as we head closer to the end of May.
No doubt about it, man. And by the way, we do have state championships for golf, and I want to announce some of those winners. So we have Rivers Academy. They won the 2026 Boys Golf State Championship with a team score of 287. So congratulations, Rivers Academy. They dominate in tennis, and look, they just won a golf state championship for 3A. And then if you can go look on Instagram, Savoy did a great job putting up some pictures from the incredible course that was there just 2 days ago on Monday. And congratulations to all the medalists, all the individualists, and the people who had the lowest scores. Congratulations. For girls state championships, guess who? Rivers Academy. Congratulations to them on winning another state championship. And David Emanuel won the 2A Boys Golf State Championship. Runner-up was Gatewood. So congratulations to all the teams that participated in the event this Monday. And you go and see those winners on GIAAsports.org and on our Instagram. Brett, that's always awesome. Golf is a very tough sport. I've never tried it, but I commend those who do. and I know they had a lot of fun.
Yeah, absolutely. And, with just getting the Masters behind us a few weeks ago, obviously golf's in full swing for everybody in the United States. And wrapping that up for the GIAA is big. You got Mason Howell, who played in the state championships. He also played in the Masters, who is the reigning U.S. amateur champion out of Brookwood. Not sure how Mason fared in the state championships, but, that's a big feather in the cap of the GIAA. So having somebody like that, and you mentioned before other big time players that we've seen come through the GIAA, and Mason Howell is just another one to mention. But yeah, Thrift, I'm excited about this show. This is going to be jam packed, man.
All right, we're going to take a break. When we come back from break, we're going to get straight into those baseball rankings. Don't go anywhere. It's Inside the GIAA, like we do every Wednesday night, presented by the Beck Center. We'll be right back after this.
GIAA.TV is your official home for live coverage of GIAA state championships throughout the year. Whether you are at home or on the go, you can stream the action live on your favorite device. Don't miss a second of the action from across the state, all on one platform. GIAA.TV, your home for GIAA championships.
GIAA.TV, that is the site where you'll be able to watch all these state championships. All right, let's get underway. Remember, these rankings were done on Monday. So I understand Citizens Christian, they did beat Pacelli and then lost their second game of the season at Calvary on Monday, but these rankings were put up. We're going off of right now. If the playoffs started, the rankings came out. They don't get updated till every week, and they'll be updated again next week when they're updated. The playoff brackets are getting set, Brett, if you can believe it or not. We're already here for playoff baseball. Let's talk 1A classification. You see the number one team, Citizens Christian, but there's 15 teams total. Westwood out, Grace Christian out, Highland out. And let's talk about the teams that are in. Crisp Academy in. You see them at number 12. John Hancock comes in at number 11. Very close between Westwood and Crisp. I'm telling you, it is very, very close. That could change. But it looks like John Hancock's in. Top 10, Fullington Academy, Covenant Academy, First Preparatory Christian Academy, Flint River, Heritage Prep, Robert Toombs. The top 4 that get buys, Thomas Jefferson, Vidalia Heritage, David Emanuel, and Citizens Christian. In my opinion, after seeing Citizens Christian in person on Monday, Brett, I really think it's almost a foregone conclusion, and I hate saying this, but it would be a massive upset if Citizens Christian and the Patriots don't bring home the championship trophy.
Yeah, I mean, you would think that they're the heavy favorite. I will plug Coach Starley down at David Emanuel. He's had success at his previous stop at John Millage, has won a couple state championships. So you've got some pedigree in some of the other schools. Obviously, Thomas Jefferson with Andy Bonifay is also another coach that has had success in the postseason, even with the Jaguars getting them to a state championship not too long ago. So you've got some coaches that could maybe they can get their teams on a run, get them positioned. But I think the pitching for Citizens Christian, it's going to be tough, man. You got a dominant guy on the mound, and then they're the defending state champs. Now, as you mentioned, with the rankings coming out on Monday, this shows 22-1. They do have their second loss on the season, but you're talking about a very close game to a Calvary Christian team who's a 4A school. So, yeah, I think all signs point to the Patriots leading the pack there in the single A.
All right, let's go to double A, Brett. And in double A right now, they are – I just had the teams up. I apologize, everyone. There are 17 schools. Right now, Augusta Prep on the outside looking in. Sherwood Christian, it's got a pretty significant gap, 3-point rating above them. I don't see them dropping here in the last week of the season. So there looks like they're going to be in. Briarwood's in at number 11. Top 10, Windsor Academy, number 9. Georgia Christian, 8. Brentwood. Westminster, number 7. Southland, 6. Edmund Burke, 5. Remember, 5 would play 12 in the first round. Southland would take on Briarwood. Westminster Christian Academy would take on Windsor Academy. And Brentwood and Georgia Christian would all play in the first round. Teams with buys, Heritage, 11 and 10. You're like, how? Well, they've had a tough schedule, tougher than anybody in 2A. Trinity Christian comes in at number 3. I will tell you this. Strength of schedule leans Gatewood. They have more wins. I know they have 2 less losses, but they're the defending 2-time state champion, Brett. They had no problem with Southwest Georgia and swept them last year. Yet they come in at number 2, but that's how the rankings unfold. I still think Gators are the favorite in this one. What's your thoughts in 2A?
Yeah, it's going to be tough. I think at the top, those two know each other so well, playing in multiple state championships against each other. You've seen Edmund Burke kind of poke its head in the last couple of years, but Gatewood and Southwest Georgia are the class of 2A. They have been for the last probably half decade. I would not sleep on any team coming out of Trinity Christian Dublin. They play some good baseball, good softball down in Dublin, and that school is very proud on the diamond, no matter whether it's, again, as I said, softball or baseball. So look out for them. Heritage School, I think they're going to be a gritty team, a tough team. You're going to have to probably win a 3-game series to get by them if you're what looks like it could be Southwest Georgia. If everything stays chalk, they would face in the semifinals. And then Gatewood would have to take on Trinity Christian if, again, everything stays chalk. So, I think advantage probably Gatewood right now. I think I would lean towards the Gators just because they've had so much success. They're the 3-time defending state champs, and they're 15-7. They're on a roll yet again, and we'll see if the Warriors have something to say, or maybe another team comes in. I wouldn't sleep on, you mentioned them last week, the Southland Raiders from Americus, team that could be dangerous. And you got some other schools that have proud history, proud tradition, but looking at the records, I think that Southland and Edmund Burke may be a couple teams that could potentially shock some people. But I think the top 2 look pretty strong.
Let's go to 3A classification. And right now, Valwood's had a stranglehold on that number 1 ranking. Now, there's 14 teams, Westminster and Terrell Academy. They're out. Who's in? Dominion Christian 12, St. Andrews 11 with a 17-10 record. I know they haven't had a tough strength of schedule, but wouldn't sleep on a team that's won 17 games. Brookwood in the top 10, Lakeview followed by Tift area, Westfield number 7, Piedmont 6, John Millage 5. So John Millage and Dominion Christian would be a first-round matchup. Piedmont and St. Andrews, Westfield and Brookwood and Tift area and Lakeview. 14s with a bye, Frederica, Pinewood, who I keep telling you is my sleeper team. Deerfield Windsor in the top 2, and the number 1 team is 21-3 Valwood. We hope to try to get on the head coach of Valwood Valiant, Robert Shipman. They are 11-1 in region play, 21-3. They're led by DeJuan Powell, the senior first baseman's batting .409 on the season with a couple of home runs and is second in the team in RBIs. Your thoughts right now, 3A, Brett, who you got? You think Valwood's the favorite?
Obviously, I think the Valiants, Coach Shipman, doing a great job down there. In fact, those top 2 teams, Valwood and Deerfield Windsor, funny enough, the first GISA/GIAA event that I ever did was in Milledgeville, baseball championships at Georgia College and State University. Those 2 teams played for the AAA crown that year before we even had 4A. And Deerfield Windsor came out on top. Valwood had a very good team. Valwood's got another really good team. Can the Valiants get it done this time here in 2026? That's 10 years later. Can the Valiants win a state championship? Deerfield Windsor always plays good ball down there. They're just, that Albany area, Leesburg, Terrell Academy is always really good. Deerfield Windsor is always really good. So that area of the state plays great baseball. And you mentioned Coach Lewis's Patriots from Pinewood Christian. They always seem to be right there in the end. And they've got some pitching. They've got some guys that can hit the ball. I would not sleep on a number 5 team in John Millage. They just know how to win in Milledgeville. And you put them on a diamond, they're used to winning in every sport. They're gritty. They're going to be a hard out no matter no matter how you slice it there. And then, I think, again, I mentioned before, Piedmont could be a surprise team you see out of Monticello. Proud tradition, big time baseball powerhouse, especially in the 2000 teens, if you will, between that 10 and 20 time frame. And they're looking to try to return to glory, so to speak. So I think those are some of the teams that you're 5 and 6 there could be a surprise. Pinewood Christian, I think, is right there nipping on the heels of 1 and 2. But it would be cool to see a rematch of that 2016 state championship that I got to call way back 10 years ago. I can't believe it's been that long. But Valwood, Deerfield, Windsor, the class right now, and we'll see who can press them in the coming weeks.
All right, finally in the 4A classification, we have 16 teams. Riverside Military comes in at 16, Kings Academy and Mount DeSales. I think they're all out, along with Pacelli. Looks like they're pretty out of it now too. So I think the 12 teams are in for the playoffs this week. Tallulah Falls comes in at number 12. Strong Rock comes in at 11. St. Anne Pacelli does have 3 games against Strong Rock. If they're able to beat them 2 out of 3, they could swap. I don't know if they're going to be able to. Bullitt comes in the top 10, followed by George Walton. Loganville, Calvary Christian, who has won 5 consecutive, comes in at number 7. 6, Bethlehem Christian. Number 5, Tatnall. So those are the teams that all had first-round matchups. It'd be number 5, Tatnall versus Tallulah, Bethlehem and Strong Rock, Calvary and Bullock, Loganville and George Walton. Top 4 that got a bye. How about this? Because they lost Strong Rock last week at home, they somehow managed to fall to number 4 because Athens Christian has won 5 games in a row. They've beaten Gatewood, the number 2 team in 2A. They also beat Stratford, the number 2 team in 4A. They just swept Bethlehem Christian. Now, they have a 3-game series against Lakeview. I do think if they lose one of those games and don't sweep, Brookstone will then jump back up to the top 3. But that's where we're at right now. Stratford comes in at number 2, and then FPD comes in at number 1. Now, I've tried to rationalize and look at and kind of understand the rankings as best I can. But Stratford lost to Bullock Academy 10-0. Okay? Bullock's number 10. Yet, they have not dropped for number 2. Brookstone loses by 1 to Strong Rock at home in the 8th inning and then goes on to win the next 2 in the 3-game series, region opponent, and drops below them. I don't know how Brookstone's not in the top 2. I get last year, you're saying that doesn't matter, but it should in essence when the team who's 22-5 and Stratford, Athens Christian, and Brookstone, I can poke a hole in every single one of their schedules. I can hear every single one of them being number 2. I think it should factor in a team that is the 2-time defending champion, who is the team that has to be knocked off the mountaintop, should be rewarded, but it's not right now. Remember, the rankings are not done. There is a very slim margin between Athens and Brookstone. I'm telling you, I could see that changing. I don't think it's going to happen for Stratford. And the number 1 team and the prohibited favorite is FPD, the number 1 team in the state of Georgia, 25-1. What a year it's been for Coach Greg Moore at FPD, and they're looking forward to getting in the playoffs. Brett, for a classification, do you hear my gripes?
I do. I wonder if does the algorithm or the ranking, I mean, that's basically what it is. Does whatever that puts out the ranking, the rating on the Max Preps, I wonder, does it take into consideration how you lose? When you look at that, because that to me could affect, you're talking about a 1-run game versus losing by 10 to the 10th ranked team. I will say I do think that Stratford can be streaky like that. And so where you may get a big victory over a team. In fact, Stratford led first FPD for most of the game that they had against them at home earlier in the year, and then FPD stormed back to win in extra innings. Stratford's streaky like that. for Brookstone and Athens Christian, it's a slim margin there. If you can't get to 2 because Stratford's kind of got a stranglehold there, you're fighting it out. You want to be in that 3 spot because I don't think you want to go to Macon to play FPD in the semis. Right. That would not be the ideal, especially now. Obviously, the association is going to go with the rankings, and because that's how things play out, right? But I think if you're looking at it from a fan on the outside in, you would love to have the opportunity to see the trilogy of that FPD Brookstone in the state championship and not in a semifinal. Now, is that going to play out? I don't know. I'm going to tell you this right now. That number 5 team with Wyatt still on the mound.
Yep.
And that proud program at Tatnall Square, they're going to be tough. So no matter who gets them, that's going to be a hard series to play against them. Bethlehem Christian is another good team that has played in the state championship in the last 4 years. And you mentioned Strong Rock taking down Brookstone. You've mentioned it in previous weeks. They're 9-17, but that is a very, very misleading record. And that's a team that could do some serious damage in the playoffs.
No doubt about it, man. And guess what? Playoffs start next week. So enough of the talk. We'll get the final rankings, and we will be into playoff mode here these next couple of weeks. And we're going to try to have on some of the number 1 teams because next week, those top 4 seeds all get buys. We're going to have on Jeremy Corum coming up next, and I had a lot of fun talking with him, the head coach of Citizens Christian. We hope to get on Southwest Georgia's coach, who's number 1 ranked in 2A, Valwood's coach and number 1 in 3A, and, of course, Greg Moore and FPD and 4A. Next week on the show. Let's take a break, Brett. When we come back, I got Jeremy Corum, head coach of the Citizens Christian number 1 team, back-to-back champion in 1A here on Inside the GIAA. We'll be right back after this.
Want to relive your favorite GIAA moments? Now you can. For only $5.99 a month, the GIAA Vault gives you access to full games and championship memories from across the association from 2016 to today. Missed a game? Want to rewatch a championship run? The GIAA Vault makes it easy to find and watch when and wherever you want. Visit vault.giaa.tv. GIAA.TV is your official home for live coverage of GIAA state championships throughout the year. Whether you are at home or on the go, you can stream the action live on your favorite device. Don't miss a second of the action from across the state, all on one platform. GIAA.TV, your home for GIAA championships.
Welcome back, everyone, here to Inside the GIAA. Just finished up our baseball segment talking about all the rankings, and we talked about the 1A classification. It's been dominated by Citizens Christian over the last couple of years. They are the number 1 team right now, and they have had a sensational season. And we're going to have a few good minutes with the head coach of Citizens Christian. His name is Jeremy Corum. Coach, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you guys having me on. Looking forward to this.
All right, Coach. As we like to do, we want the entire GIAA community and around the association to know who Jeremy Corum is. So I'm not going to ask a bunch of questions. I'm going to let you tell your story, man. Where are you from? What got you into baseball? And ultimately, what led you here to Citizens Christian?
Yeah, man, I hate to bore you guys for a little bit. But, yeah, no, a little bit about my backstory, man. I was originally born in Tampa, Florida. My dad was a pastor, so moved around a little bit during my high school career. Ended up graduating from Bainbridge High School. There in Bainbridge, Georgia, and then went on to play baseball at Valdosta State, and then transferred to Chipola, and then finished up at Bruton Parker. So I guess that was before the transfer portal, so I guess I tried to break the record for how many schools I could attend, in the 4-year segment. But no, it was fun, man. Enjoyed that. Definitely, college baseball made some of your lifelong best friends there for sure. Enjoyed every minute of that. God blessed me with the ability to play there, and that's what I did. But, after my college career, my college baseball coach actually had a son, and he wanted me to kind of coach him. So I ended up staying in that area. Then, man, in 2016, CCA took a chance on a 25-year-old kid. And, and here we are 10 years later. And so definitely been blessed with, just the administration here, the admin and all. And coaching's kind of something you grow up playing baseball. It's kind of something a lot of baseball players have in the back of their mind. I've always had a feel that that's where it kind of end. Of course, you try to make it as long as you can in playing baseball and things like that and control what you can control. But man, so that's always kind of been in the back of my mind. And now, I get the opportunity to live out that dream every day. So, man, I'm blessed.
You won a state championship last year, trying to go back-to-back, made it to consecutive state championship, Coach Corm. What is it about Citizens Christian that you've loved and called here for so long? You've been very successful. You're a young guy. I know there's probably been other opportunities that come out there, but it seems like you like Citizens Christian. This is the place you've called home. Yeah,
I have 3 kids, 2 that attend CCA. And so, for me, it's obviously I'm a family guy, so you got to look at your family. And not only this is where I want to call home, but I want my kids to grow up and go to school here. Right. And so that's special for me, first off, before anything else comes baseball. But, baseball wise, man, just the admin, this day and age is tough to find people to have your back and that stick with you. And I'll say, the admin here at CCA has been a blessing. Always been supportive. Man, this is my 10th year here and coming in, I was talking to a guy the other day coming in, man, we had 1 concrete slab and probably 6 baseballs and, not a lot to work with. And just seeing where we're at now, man, I get emotional talking about it for sure. And so, but I couldn't do that without the admin and support and the parents and the community here in Douglas. So very, very pleased with that.
Let's talk about this year's team, Coach. Everybody wants to hear. We'll first start with the big headline. Everybody talks about Blake Bryant. We're going to have on the commissioner, Clint Morgan. Everybody knows who he is. I was there on Monday when you were at Calvary, and there were 50 kajillion scouts. He's not only a great pitcher, obviously. He's a great hitter. But what has he meant to your program, the senior that's been there with you through thick and thin, and now trying to win back-to-back state championship?
Yeah, first off, I have the joy of seeing him outside of baseball. And man, I tell you, a lot of guys, of course, he's obviously a talented baseball player. Everybody knows that. But man, he's that good of a kid as well. And one thing about him, I was talking to scouts this week and just I'm excited to see him in an off-season program. He goes from baseball to summer ball to basketball and then back on the baseball field. And so just seeing that, but man, the kid puts in a tremendous amount of work, obviously, to get where he's at, and not only that, but God has blessed him with ability and a talent, and he uses it for his glory. And so, but man, the kid's an unbelievable kid. He raised the right way, respectful, a leader, and then, top that all off. Obviously, he's a phenomenal baseball player.
Gray McLean, he's actually leading the team right now. He has been on fire. He's got 12 doubles on the year. Yeah. Got another 26 RBIs. Talk about the senior that's come up huge for you this season.
So I can't talk too many good things about us because I'm sure the team will watch this and they always say, I guess they use the word glaze now. I glaze Gray so much or whatever. But I don't know. Nah, man, Gray's a dude. He's been a kid that I've plugged in our leadoff spot now for 4 years. And I tell you, it's going to hurt my feelings next year when I got to put somebody else up there. But, man, short story here. Up until last year at Stratford, he had like a 98 on game base streak. And the only game he wasn't on base was the second game of his 8th grade year. And I took him out because we were up big, And so that's been the only game so far he hasn't been on base. But, man, he sets the tone. He's really the backbone of our offense. He sets the tone. Man, he's just a competitor. He does things the right way no matter the circumstance. He's going to show up. And I tell you, game on the line, that's who you want in the box, on the bases, whatever. I mean, I think he has 39 stolen bases last 2 years. He's had 40-plus stolen bases each year. So, and he just knows the game, high IQ kid, and that's why he's going to get a chance to play at the next level.
Coach, you went about a month without losing a game. Yeah. The 2 losses you have, Stratford, number 2 in 4A, and Calvary, who's played a really tough schedule. Yeah, and they're a great program. They would be high. They're high ranked in 4A as well. you've been dominant though, Coach, and you're ranked highly. How do you keep your team grounded, knowing that you're the prohibited favorite in 1A, and not to get upset and try to keep tunnel focus to bring home another championship?
Yeah, well, I first think, when you set the season, any quality program has goals. Your first goal is obviously to win. Well, for us, it's to compete in every game because we believe we're good enough. If we compete, we'll have a chance to win there at the end. But
Right.
not only that, but, to win that region championship, we were able to get that. And then, of course, your goal is to win a state championship at the end of the year. However, in that, we have a standard of baseball that we want to play to, no matter who our opponent is and no matter who that is. And I believe our players have a good understanding of that. And that's kind of what we got to stick with and not necessarily worry about what round it is, who's across the field, but just know what standard we have to play to and what a standard that I expect them to play to. And as long as we do that, hey, win, lose, or draw, you got to be proud of your team.
We're with Coach Jeremy Corum, done a great job, 10-year coach over at Citizens Christian, trying to go back-to-back state championships. Coach, I talked to, coaches around the area I'm at here in Columbus and baseball coaches, and they like doing tough schedules. And then I look at your schedule. You didn't have to play Pacelli, Calvary. Now you got Deerfield, Windsor. Those are games that mean absolutely nothing to you. You already clinched the #1 seed. What was the thought this last week of the regular season, playing these tough teams, knowing that you could end up losing a game before you get to the playoffs?
Yeah, I mean, for us, example on Monday, I think winning sometimes kind of hides things you need to work on, as far as a team, as far as a player, an individual, you're saying, I didn't do so good at this, but we still won. We're okay. And so, for me, I know I have the team that I can go compete, man. We went down to Tampa, played 2 top 20 teams in the state of Kentucky, played a team out of Illinois. And I'm talking about some dudes, man, like they were some big dudes, but we're up for the challenge. We want that challenge. And not only that, hey, it's 0-0 when that game starts. And so anybody can win. And Monday we saw some things obviously we need to work on, and that's good for us. And so that's what we did. Yesterday at practice, we probably had a 4-hour base running practice, got picked off 3 times. So no, we didn't. But no, it kind of exposes things that you've kind of gotten comfortable with. And, and all we can do is get better at them in practice and be prepared for the next time we go out.
All right, Coach, finally, what is the message to the team to finish out strong? And this is your message to also talk about your message to the team to finish out strong and win a state championship. And kind of a 2-part question. Why is it so cool to be a part of this Citizens Christian community, and why the fan support is so awesome?
Yeah, first off, message to the team is exactly what I just said. The standard, we know the standard. I believe that's one thing that, man, has been so special to us here is 10-year. The culture's changed a little bit, and we expect to win. We do. We show up, and does that mean we're going to win every game? Absolutely not. But we expect to win, and we compete. And like I said, I believe we're talented enough that we compete. We're going to be in it. Sometimes, look, to win a state championship, no matter how good you are, obviously you have to have talent to get there, but you got to have a little luck that plays on your side as well. And so those are things we can't control, but showing up every day, man, competing, getting better now for whenever we're going to play in those playoffs, that's important to us. And man, I can't say enough about our guys. We got a football team out there. We got 27 kids, but no, they come out every day, man, have fun. And, we try to do things outside of baseball to let them know, first off, as a coaching staff, we want to connect with the person, not the player first. And so that's big for us. And just the community here, man, Douglas Now, the local newspaper, they do a really good job in following us. And I believe, Thrift, you mentioned that schedule. I believe in us playing a quality schedule, we get some respect, and so by that schedule and us being not scared to play whoever, I think we've got that respect, and man, and I'm happy for the players, and just the community's been great. Obviously they've supported me and all the crazy ideas I have sometimes and things like that. But man, I can't say enough about the staff here, and it's definitely family, and I wouldn't want to be anywhere else.
Well, Coach, hopefully we may get to talk to you here in a few weeks, because we'll be seeing you if things go according to plan in Statesboro. Good luck the rest of the way, and thank you so much for joining us, man.
Hey, appreciate all you guys do. Thank you so much.
That is Coach Jeremy Corum. Thank you so much, Coach, for joining us. And he's had a fantastic program there. I'm telling you, done an amazing job and trying to go back-to-back. Again, they're a prohibitive favorite, but you heard him. He's trying to keep his team grounded. They take care of business and do what they're supposed to. They can be state champions. We're going to take a break. When we come back from break, guess what? We're throwing it to Richard and Tyler, and we're talking soccer here. We got 2A, 3A, and 4A, girls and boys rankings. Regular season ends now. Potential playoffs coming up. Don't go anywhere. It's Inside the GIAA here on GIAA.tv.
Founded in 1985, the Georgia Independent School Association proudly represents nearly 170 accredited private, independent, and parochial schools across the state. From Tallulah Falls to St. Simon's Island, from Columbus to Augusta, our schools serve over 76,000 students every year. Whether parents are interested in smaller class sizes, more individual attention, a religious-based curriculum, or a safe and structured environment, the GISA provides a strong education, which is the foundation for success. To learn more about the GISA and how they can serve your school, visit us online at www.gisaschools.org.
And welcome back to Inside the GIAA. Great segment with Thrift Barringer and Brett Taylor. The baseball season has got the final regular season. Playoffs are next week. The soccer season also is down to their final week in the regular season. And joining me, as always, is our soccer correspondent on Inside the GIAA. It is Coach Ian Jones of Stratford Academy Boys. Coach, welcome once again to Inside the GIAA.
Thanks, Richard. Thanks for having us again today.
All right, we've had some movers and shakers. We did have some soccer matches. Big-time soccer matches that got pushed to the right because of inclement weather yesterday. But so far, with the final week of the regular season, they have to get these games in. The region games have to play because first-round playoff matches are starting next week, Coach.
Yeah, it's that time of year where, unfortunately, when we have some bad weather, it kind of puts a damper on things. And, obviously some teams that, that have games are going to want to try and get them in before the weekend, before the state track meet that is on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday at Strong Rock. And, if they've got participants participating in that, then obviously that, is difficult. But certainly I think for the most part, I think everyone will be fine. Should be able to get those games in either today or tomorrow. I think most of the running events are on Friday and Saturday.
All right, Coach, let's go ahead and go over the rankings. As right now, we have the 2A girls, and right now the defending champions is Central Fellowship. The runners-up from last year, Westminster Christian. Trinity Christian comes in at 3. St. George's at 4. Georgia Christian at 5. We got Heritage out of Noonan at 6. Sherwood Christian at 7. First Preparatory Christian out of Hinesville at 8, number 9, Gatewood, and then finally rounding out the top 10 is Robert Toombs.
Yeah, right off the bat, I mean, again, the Lancers of Central Fellowship, they've finished the season strong, and their lone losses was to Stratford early in the season, and then obviously Westminster Christian is repeating, what they've done over the last few years with their performances, and then Trinity Christian and St. George's rounding out the top 4. I think have done a good job, and I certainly think they'll be the ones that will be creating the most noise. But again, you can't write off the number 5 and number 6 slot. I think that sometimes that's where we find a sleeper, and in this division, I think it's gonna be again come down to preparation. Make sure you're ready to go when it's time to play.
All right, Coach, let's go to 2A boys, and Heritage holding that solid number 1 spot. They were the runners-up last year. Look who's coming up as Holy Spirit Prep. They were off to a slow start. The defending 2A champions are now at number 3. I think they've got a favorable matchup if they're able to face Augusta Prep in the semifinals. But talk about like Atlanta Jewish making the top 10. As they are a newcomer to this rankings. Any surprises with the 2A boys rankings?
Well, obviously, Holy Spirit's record, being 9-5-1, they did have a slow start, but I think they've overcome some early season, some losses and starting to come into their own right now. And Heritage, I mean, just hats off to them. Like I've said over the last few weeks, we played them early in the year and certainly been a very solid team. They're actually going to be taking on Westminster of Augusta. I believe before the playoffs start up in a friendly match, so that'll be a good test for both teams to see where they're at. But certainly when push comes to shove, Sherwood Christian, I think, and Westminster Christian, you got two experienced squads from the last two seasons, who I think certainly the experience that they've gained from where they've been will certainly be a test. For that top four, that are in there with Augusta Prep, Heritage, Holy Spirit, and Sherwood Christian.
Yeah, by the way, leading scorer in the 2A classification is Elam Russell, a midfielder, has 35 goals on the season over at Sherwood Christian, followed by Liam Kotimer, that's got 27 goals. And Trinity Christian, Jag George, 25 goals. A lot of goal scoring in 2A boys classification, Coach.
Yeah, I mean, I think what I mean. It's hard to say why, but certainly, you've a lot of those big time goal scorers are typically high level club players that may or may not have played for their school in years prior. But as they get further and further into high school, some of them realize hey, the college level's not where I really want to go, and so that they decide to step away from the club aspect and join it with our school team and certainly I'm a big proponent for participating in high school soccer or high school athletics. I think that the social element that the kids earn from that and the experience that playing in front of their peers and playing with their peers, I think is exponential.
Yeah, no question about it, Coach. A lot of these players are dual players. They're playing for a club team and they're also playing for their high school team. Let's go to 3A girls. Frederica Academy, the defending champions. They stand at number 1, Brookwood at 2, Terrell Academy out of Dawson, Georgia at 3, Lakeview at 4, Westminster Schools of Augusta at number 5, Deerfield Windsor at 6, John Millage, which, by the way, they have the leading goal scorer in 3A, Sophie Glisson, who's got 21 goals on the season. St. Andrews out of Savannah at a 7-7 record, and then Westfield School that play up because they're in the 4A classification with the likes of Pacelli, Brookstone, Strong Rock, and Calvary. And then rounding out the top 10 is Tift area. It's looking like we have going to have our final ranking. So this is not a foregone conclusion that this is where these teams are going to be ranked. And also, this is a top 10. We've got the top 12 that make the playoffs. Coach, your thoughts on the 3A girls?
Well, I think Frederica, on paper is the favorite, but certainly I think any of the seeds from especially 2 through 7, I think you got schools that have been playing some really tough competition outside of their classification, especially like when you talk about John Millage being in District 6, and then like you said, Westfield being down in Pacelli and Brookstone's and Calvary's district. So certainly, I would anticipate this to be probably one of the most competitive, playoff round, for the rounds, from the seeds 2 through 6 or 2 through 7. So certainly, I think Frederica, though, on paper, I mean, it's just I don't know if there's a team that can on paper that can touch them. But again, that's why you play a season and that's why you play a playoffs. So it'll be a great matchup, for any team that's going in against Frederica.
Yeah, no question about it, Coach. Some of the other leading goal scorers in the 3A classification: Scarlett Holmes from St. Andrews, she's got 18 goals on the season. Jolene Romero from Westminster Schools of Augusta has got 18 as well. And McKenna Riley, also from St. Andrews, with 16 goals on the season. All right, Coach. I was looking at the rankings for the 3A boys. Apparently, Dominion Christian as cracks our top 8. Remember, last couple weeks we've had top 7. So I guess Max Preps, they're recognizing that there are some 3A soccer teams that have played a couple of games. I know that Westfield School tried to field a soccer team. Some of these schools have JV teams, but we still have Westminster School sitting there with a 17-2 record, followed by Brookwood, St. Andrews, Valwood, and then from 5 to 8, teams with some losing records still going to make the playoffs. I know there's not a whole lot of teams in 3A boys, but your takeaway on now the top 8 for the 3A boys.
Yeah, well, one thing to point out is Max Preps, to qualify for the ranking system, you have to play a minimum of 5 games. So that's right. So that makes sense for why Dominion is finally in on the rankings. Westminster Schools, we played them last week, and for the second year in a row, I mean, based on all the teams I've watched play, whether it's through scout video or we've played against, Westminster Schools are clearly one of the strongest teams in our league, and Sean Browson's done such a good job, and it's not that he's reloaded. He graduated a lot last year, and he's just pulled through some younger kids. I think he's going to start a freshman or sophomore starting at center back, who has done really, really well, and they've got some proven goal scorers who. They're a very, very creative team. They're a team that, they're a joy to watch. But certainly, as Sean pointed out, St. Andrews, they only beat them 1-0. And so certainly I think, Brookwood and St. Andrews, and maybe Valwood, they're going to give them a game. But certainly if Westminster is sleeping that day, I think then it'll be an entertaining game. But if Westminster comes to play, I think it's going to be very, very tough for anyone in that classification to win. But again, I know Sean fairly well, and I think he's going to make sure his boys are ready to go.
And by the way, the leading goal scorers, and now this is according to Max Preps, because some of the schools I don't recognize, because if they don't update their stats in Max Preps, then they don't have it in the list. But Jed Respes, 41 goals. He plays for Valwood. Brookwood's got 2 couple strikers. Harrison Chapura with 32 goals, and Kenji's son with 19 goals. Will Trickett, also a striker for Valwood. I don't see a top goal scorer for Westminster Schools. That doesn't necessarily mean they don't have a top goal scorer. They just haven't updated their stats on Max Preps. But I just wanted to throw that out there, Coach.
Yeah, a lot of and I'm one of those coaches. A lot of us don't put up our stats on Max Preps. I mean, just from a scouting aspect,
right?
Unless it's required, you're not going to give out that kind of information. And because and certainly when you go to the all-state meet, you'll provide that information at that time. But certainly, I mean, I'm not a proponent for putting stats up online. But again, if we're required to do it, then hey, I think more teams would certainly be putting them up.
Yeah, especially when you have a player that's got 41 goals. The next opponent to say, hey, let's just get a defender on him and make sure he doesn't get any touches. So I can understand why coaches don't put stats on Max Preps.
Yeah.
All right, Coach, let's finally move to 4A girls. Stratford still coming in as the number 1 team, followed by FPD. I know they've played each other a couple of times in the same region. The Keens Academy, or Pacelli, has jumped the Keens Academy. They are now number 3. They're the defending 4A champions. And then the Keens Academy is now at 4, followed by George Walton. Strong Rock, Pacelli got a massive win over Strong Rock last week. Brookstone, they ended up taking on Strong Rock this week. They actually tied a team from Alabama, a 7A school in Smith Station. Mount DeSales over there at number 8. Tallulah Falls at number 9. And then rounding out the top 10, Bullock Academy. Your thoughts on the 4A girls?
Well, obviously Stratford has, pulled away with and had a fantastic regular season, finishing 16-0. FPD has, I think they started slow, but as the seasons progressed, they've gotten stronger and stronger. And likewise with Pacelli, you've got the defending state champs, who have arguably played one of the toughest schedules. It's fairly easy for a school like Pacelli and Brookstone and Calvary, for them to find some really tough competition down in their area, down in Columbus and on the Alabama border. So that's that kind of skews their record, but doesn't say that they're a poor team, because certainly we know Pacelli are going to go deep into the playoffs. And then Kings Academy, you got to give them credit. They've had a fantastic season. And then George Walton's come on strong, and Strong Rock, I mean, they've had a fantastic season as well. So certainly I think Strong Rock could make some noise. And then you got Brookstone. They were state runners up last year, and they were the champions in 2024. So certainly I think they'll provide some stiff competition, and Mountain Sales could be a sleeper. If a team overlooks them and the Mountain Sales is clicking, certainly think Mountain Sales could maybe provide that one upset in that classification.
Oh, absolutely, Coach. And remember, the first 4 teams get a bye. It is the top 12 that make the playoffs, which the first round will start next week. And finally, 4A boys, Mountain Sales finally got a loss on the season. Pacelli, Brookstone, and Calvary all come in at 2, 3, and 4. They're all from Columbus, Georgia. They're all in the same region. They have all played each other. Calvary still has to play Pacelli one more time. That will be on Thursday. And then on Friday, Pacelli's going to play Brookstone. So these games can be interchangeable. And then Tallulah Falls, they jump over Stratford. Your team has fallen all the way down to 6, but that's a dangerous 6 seed. Just talk about how the rankings have played out. And I know you've got to be a little disappointed that these teams have gotten hot and they have leapfrogged Stratford, but that means that you guys are going to be ready for the postseason and every team is going to get your best shot.
Yeah, I mean, certainly you got to give credit where it's due. I mean, obviously Mountain Sales had a great season. We overcame them last Thursday in overtime. It was a great matchup, and obviously you give credit where it's due with Pacelli, Brookstone, and Calvary. I mean, obviously, again, you're talking about teams that are playing a fairly difficult schedule, and then Tallulah Falls has 13 straight wins. We've faltered a little bit since spring break. We're 2-2 since spring break, but again, we're playing against 2 strong teams. Westminster last week, and then yesterday we fell to Cristo Rey in a very disappointing loss for us. But certainly, I think this classification on the boys' side might be one of the most competitive ones we've had in a while, because sitting at 11 and 12, you've got in the rankings, I know it's not being displayed, you got FPD and Tatnall, and even though their records may not show much in regards to they're playing in a very tough region with Mountain Sales and Stratford, but FPD is much improved at the 12th seed, and they've got Strong Rock in a few days, so they should be able to lock that 12th seed in. And I wouldn't anticipate too much movement in these rankings. I think Mountain Sales will finish as number 1. And then I think the only movement we might see, honestly, I think it will be between the 2, 3, and 4 seed. I think Tallulah Falls has played had a great season, but I think when it comes down to strength of schedule, I think between Pacelli, Brookstone, and Calvary, they'll lead the way. And then so I don't anticipate too much movement in the rankings. But again, I think it's going to be a very interesting first round for a lot of opponents. I mean, certainly Stratford, if we finish 6th, FPD finished 12th. FPD took us to penalty kicks a few weeks ago. So certainly there's not going to be very many easy matchups for anyone.
Yeah, no question about it, Coach. And I do want to make mention Brookstone only won 4 games last year. Already at 10, they've got the leading goal scorer in 4A, EJ Surraw. I've seen this kid play up close. He also plays for the USL team in Columbus United FC. He is just an electric goal scorer with 30 goals. But there could be some intriguing matchups, especially in the quarters and the semifinals. And I can't wait for us to cover it, Coach.
Yeah. There's gonna be some great soccer to be played. across all classifications on the girls' side and the boys' side. And that's what makes this game so beautiful. I mean, on any given day, a team can come in and put their best effort forward and create that upset, or you get these players, these teams that have some really top-notch players that are playing at a high level. You got Alex Roseborough over at Mountain Sales, who's playing for the local semi-professional team. The USL Allegiance, and then you've got obviously Liam Fowler, who's I think he's the leading goal scorer in our region. And so certainly I think we're going to see some entertaining soccer, and I'm looking forward to watching it. I hope hopefully as a team we'll be going deep. But either way, I'm such a proponent for the game of soccer that if we're still in it, great, and if we're not, I'm going to do whatever we can to support the teams to make sure that especially when we're hosting the state championships, that that they have all the support they need in their preparations.
No question about it, Coach. And I do want to say this because it was brought to my attention that you talked about the talent in Macon, the Macon area of soccer, which there needs to be a USL team in Macon. We got one in Columbus. Call it Macon United. And they need to play maybe at Mercer. Or I think that needs to happen sooner rather than later, and maybe in the next couple of years.
Well, I can tell you what, between Mercer and Stratford's facilities, there's no reason why we couldn't host it. The team Allegiance here in Macon, and then we've had Middle Georgia FC, in the USL, semi-pro league as well, and the biggest part is basically, comes down to, finances, making sure that, that the facility that's hosting, because it takes a lot to maintain these facilities. Right. And so certainly, Allegiance, they got promoted last year in their first season. And Middle Georgia FC, we actually hosted some of their games in years past. So certainly, there is a lot of talent in the Middle Georgia area in between Macon and Warner Robins and Forsyth. And so certainly, it would be a really good thing for Middle Georgia to kind of unite and put together something.
Yeah, absolutely. Coach, looking forward to having you on Inside the GIAA next week, where the brackets will come out and we'll get to go through all the brackets. I cannot wait.
Me too.
All right, let's go ahead and take a break. When we come back, Thrift Barringer is going to be talking to Clint Morgan. You don't want to go anywhere. It's Inside the GIAA, and we'll be right back after this.
GIAA.TV is your official home for live coverage of GIAA state championships throughout the year. Whether you are at home or on the go, you can stream the action live on your favorite device. Don't miss a second of the action from across the state, all on one platform. GIAA.TV, your home for GIAA championships.
Welcome back, everyone, here to Inside the GIAA, and it's been a fantastic show. Thank you to head coach, Coach Corum, over at Citizens Christian, and his phenomenal stuff. We got to talk about Blake Bryant, who's probably going to be playing the major leagues. We had 20 MLB scouts in Columbus on Monday when Calvary and Citizens Christian went down. Citizens Christian, the number one team in 1A. Also, thank you to Richard Holdridge and Coach Ian Jones over at Stratford for being our soccer contributor as they broke down both girls and boys 2A, 3A, and 4A rankings as the playoffs start. Can you believe it? Next week, we're already done with spring sports, and I'm going to bring on the busiest man in the GIAA. It's really hard to track him down, but we got him here. His name is Clint Morgan. Clint, thank you so much for joining us here.
First, say I'm not the busiest man in the GIAA. There's many more people that do a lot more than I have to do, for sure. But it is a busy time for sure for all of us and all the schools. And spring is just that time of year with not only spring sports happening, but you're also talking about graduations and exams, AP exams and final exams and all the different things that these schools are having. And it's those memories that are being made at this time of year. So we enjoy every minute of it.
Clint, last time we talked was at the end of February. Had a fantastic showing at Columbus State University for the basketball state championships. And the last couple of months, how's it been for you and Kent and the rest of the administration? And man, can you believe it? We're already state championship time for those spring sports, which I realized over the last couple of years is really the busiest time of year. I thought it was fall. I thought winter was okay. And then there's 900 million sports being played in the spring. But how's the last couple of months been for y'all, man?
Yeah, it's what you say there. It's busy, but it's a fun busy. It's not ever a bad time when you're having the opportunity to watch kids play and as hard as they work in the classroom, and then they come out on the field and play as hard as they do there too. It's just a lot of fun to watch. There are a lot of sports going on at the same time, and the funny part is like this week as we speak, with golf and tennis and track all this week. That's 6 days of this week. And the funny thing is I've seen kids each of these days and going to see them every day this week. The same kids is what I'm saying. Yeah. There's kids that do multiple sports throughout, and we have golfers that play tennis and also do track. It's hard to get a lot of the schoolwork done, I'm sure, but these kids know how to multitask and make it happen. And I commend them for all they do to make it happen.
Last week, you had individual state championships. We were able to broadcast every single one of the winners. Great job by Savoy and the social media crew. Again, Instagram, go and follow right now. You get all the updates at the state championships, Facebook as well, and, of course, the website, giaasports.org. How was last week's individual state championships? And it seems like you're back at the John Drew Smith Center at Stratford, and also the Randy Stevens. Talk about how these team championships are going.
Yeah, well, it's wet, which is not a bad thing. We've had a lot of rain, and we actually had to postpone day one. But you're right, as far as Savoy doing such a great job with getting all this information out to everyone and making sure that they understand and what's going on with the weather. The individual tennis was great. It was exciting. It was just amazing. I mean, when you see the quality of tennis that's in our league is simply amazing. And then you come into this week and have the team portion of the tournament. It's a different animal, if you will. And when you throw the team concept in there, when you got to win 3 out of the 5 matches, and may it be singles or doubles, and the way teams cheer on each other, in more of a duel type match, it's really fun to watch. Got some really good teams. Rivers Academy, as spoke on last week with a lot of those individuals there, and FPD, and the Quad A side of things, and they're really good as well. So a lot of good quality tennis. But I will say that, and I know you didn't mention this yet. You may be bringing it up, but the golf over on Monday was phenomenal. I had the ability to be at Harbor Club up at Lake Oconee, and where the girls and the AA boys were. It was we had a situation that put the boys and the girls at the same spot, so it created a little bit of a long day. Everybody was understanding in the situation, and it couldn't have been better as far as the outcome with the winners and how they felt about the course is very tough already, but on the other side of things, in Macon for the AAA, one thing I can say, and I wish I could remember the name, but coming down to the final hole in the AAA division, you had a kid from Frederica that on 18 chipped in on 18, and that gave his squad a lead, and also had him as the low medalist at that time with a shooting of 64, which
Wow.
is pretty amazing. 8 under, and then you turn around and following that shot, Mason Howell, which I think most of us know who he is,
No doubt.
who played in the Masters just a couple weeks ago. He hit his approach shot 30. He was at a 30-foot putt and sank his 30-foot eagle putt that gave him the low medalist by shooting a 63. So it was a really, really well done and fun atmosphere to just people to have a chance to watch. That was amazing.
Yeah, this just shows again the talent that is across the board for every single sport. It's not just the main sports, it's all the sports. And glad that we were able to be there and had a good time before the rain came in. I know that was awesome to get that through, not to prolong what you already got a busy week, because you go from golf, you got tennis that's going on now, and then this weekend you got track and field at Strong Rock. It's like one busy week after another. What are you looking forward to there? And is there any news or notes? Because people are asking about weather. Like, what's the plan in place for if anything happens?
Yeah, so we come in always with the idea that our plan is to get things done, get it in. You do your best to try to wait things out. Fortunately, we're at one of our schools at Strong Rock, which is an amazing venue. And they work really well with us. Obviously, there's going to be the possibility of some rain on Thursday, Friday, and probably the worst of it on Saturday, which is usually our shortest day. So we're going to do our best to get it all in. You can do a lot of things in track even while it's raining. There's several events that you can still do, but our plan is to make it happen, and there's going to be some really good track competitors there. A lot of good schools, a lot of coaches that and a lot of people don't know this. To be honest, our track meet is officiated by our coaches. The coaches basically volunteer their time and make it happen. And we've been told many times that from a lot of people that that sport is the sport that is most well run. And I always tell them it's because our coaches do it, and it's not some outside group officiating or anything like that. And so our coaches, they have a vested interest in how this thing goes, and they do a really fabulous job of making it happen. And JP Weaver, as our meet director, he does a great job. Lot of people working together to make it happen.
Finally, Clint, baseball this year is going to be in Statesboro. Looking forward to that. How excited are you to be back in Statesboro at Georgia Southern to do the state championships there?
We haven't been there at all for baseball. Coach Hennon was happy to see that we were playing so late into the month of May that he knew that it could be available to us at that time, and so we jumped on the opportunity, and it's second to none. They've done a lot of renovating there. Great facility, great playing surface. Everything about it is really good. With even getting to the fact of batting cages and things like that. So it's going to be a lot of fun. When you mentioned him earlier, there's a great chance that you're going to have Blake Bryan and Keon Johnson both being there in the same venue. Expect to see a lot of those scouts, same scouts that you saw the other night. We'll probably see them there in Statesboro as well. And Keon, he's been so good for so long, and looking forward to see what his future is going to do. Also, not just Blake Bryan. We know where he is, but both of those guys have the ability to be getting their name called on draft day. So we're excited to see those things, and it looks really good for GIAA when these things happen.
Clint, thank you so much for your time, man. Look forward to having you on again, and look forward to seeing you in a few weeks in Macon and at Statesboro for the soccer and baseball state championships.
Well, appreciate you guys. You do a tremendous job of making things happen for us, and keep up the good work. We appreciate you a bunch.
That's Clint Morgan, the commissioner here. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we'll wrap it up on Inside the GIAA.
That is the intro, Thrift. You're killing me.
Welcome back, everyone. Man, what a jam-packed show. Great job, and thank you to our guests, Ian Jones, soccer contributor, Jeremy Corum, head coach of Citizens Christian, of course, the commissioner himself, Clint Morgan. Brett, we had a lot of fun. Next week, we'll wrap up and talk about the team tennis state championships. We'll talk track and field state championships. We'll talk the 3 teams that are ranked number 1 in 2A, 3, and 4A, and their head coaches in baseball. Ian and Richard will dive into those first-round matchups for soccer. We'll talk baseball first-round matchups. Another jam-packed show. Before you know it, we'll be in Macon and Statesboro. That's the home and the week of the GIAA State Championships, May 26th and 27th at Stratford School. That's the soccer state championship. Girls on the 26th, boys on the 27th. And then the May 28th, 29th, and 30th, that is Thursday, Friday, Saturday. We're at Brett's old home, Georgia Southern. Statesboro, home of the 1A, 2A, 3A, and 4A baseball state championships, Brett. So a lot of fun. And any other final thoughts before we get out of here, man?
Well, first off, got to say GATA there for my Georgia Southern folks. And then I'll have to give a shout out to the folks down in South Georgia. I hope we get some rain for y'all between now and in those state championships. But once the end of May comes, we want all the rain dancing to stop, because we need that last week of May. We need to get in these state championship games. We've had some bad luck the last few years with rain. We're going to ward it off this year. But hopefully those folks that are dealing with some of the fires and stuff like that down south, hopefully they get some relief with some rain that helps them out in May, and then kind of goes away after we get towards the state championship week. But it was a great show, Thrift. I'm looking forward to it. Doing this show gets me excited for what we have to come. We know the playoffs are about to start for both soccer and baseball. It's a great time in the association, and I'm hoping that we finish this school year and sports year up strong, and that we just kind of vault right in to the 26-27 school year headed into the summer. So I appreciate you having me on the show yet again, and can't wait to next week.
Inside the GIAA, presented by the Beck Center. We'll see you next week on GIAA.tv. Have a good one, everyone.
This copyrighted broadcast, presented exclusively on GIAA.tv, is copyrighted by the Georgia Independent Athletic Association, a division of the Georgia Independent School Association, for the private use of our audience. It may not be retransmitted, reproduced, rebroadcast, or otherwise distributed or used in any form without the express written consent of the Georgia Independent School Association.